whatever was drinking beers and smoking cigarettes at halftime. It was nuts.
I hear you.
It was a different time. It was a great time. We had a blast.
Oh, I bet, man.
We had a great
the
season.
80s, man.
Yeah.
The 80s, I mean, come on, man. We all know what the 80s was.
Yeah. Well, we had a great season. We ended up 7-3. Doesn't sound like it's a great season, but we lost to the national champion, Taft College. We played them for the national championship, even with a 7-2 record. Well, the other team that beat us, Mount Sac, they were the number 2 team in the country. And the other team that beat us was Santa Monica. They ended up like number 5 in the country. So our league was called the Metropolitan League. It was the strongest junior college league in America. I mean, it was insane. It was the gauntlet. Every game was just, tough. And so what happened was Pasadena, a team that we beat, ended up 7-3. They went to a bowl game, and I believe they ended up number 4 in the nation. So I just said 4 teams or whatever in a league. That's how good the league was. It was.
I mean, you're playing top 5 teams. You know, I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Put it this way: we had 3 defensive backs that went to the NFL. One started. It was pretty well known. His name is Kenny Steele. Plays for Green Bay. His son is in the NFL now.
He's a wide receiver.
Yeah, Kenny. And we had 2 down linemen, Rod Timmons and Daryl Gravington, played in the league. So what's that? That's 5 guys on defense out of 11 that actually played in the NFL. That's how good, talented the team was. Yeah, it was really talented.
So as you're playing, you're setting all these records. Could anybody stop you? I mean, with these numbers, like any offense, did you always have like an offensive lineman that just had your number, or were you able to get?
You're gonna like this one. It's on top of your knee right now. No. No. You know what?
Nobody, not one.
No. There hasn't been an offensive lineman that can block me and check me for 4 quarters. It's not going to happen. Look, this is the only thing an offensive lineman has over me. It's height and weight. That is it. Nothing more. I'm stronger than them. Now you're probably thinking, how's he stronger? Well, when I got into MMA 20 years later, I didn't know that I was freakish strong. I didn't know. When I played football, we were judged how much you could bench press.
Yeah.
So I was average. So I never really thought I was strong until I got into MMA. When I got into grappling, I started to realize, like, man, these guys are so light.
You're just picking them up and throwing them.
Yeah.
You used to throw 250-pound linemen, right? And now you're grabbing.
Well, I played a read defense. That means so in other words, when I go against the center, I have to hesitate a split second to see which way he's going to go.
Right.
So I couldn't exactly use my speed off the ball. I had to wait to see which way he's going to go.
And then.
So obviously I was able to catch him really quick, not realizing I was stronger, I was faster, I was quicker, I was meaner. There's not one category that an offensive lineman had over me other than height and weight. I enslaved them. I was the enslaver. And they knew that when the 3rd quarter came, I could not wait because I already knew they couldn't keep my pace.
Right.
It's kind of like wrestlers have a grit, a grind, and that's what I was able to do to those guys. I couldn't tell you how many different centers and linemen I had to face during the game. They were rotating them in.
Those guys would blow up, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because they couldn't keep up. They're trying. They would blow up, and then they would have to, go on the sideline for a couple plays, get some oxygen, drink some water. Well, they didn't have oxygen back then like they do now. But, like just catch their breath, second wind, things like that.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, they're big bodies. They're getting tired fast. I was a little body, but yeah.
Like a mosquito.
Well, mosquito, but I had a big body motor, and I was extremely strong. And I talked a lot of shit, too, during the game.
I bet.
So a lot of those guys, I don't think they were used to it. I don't know.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, it's just when they get frustrated, because part of the game is mental, right?
Yeah.
Once you get into somebody's head, you own them. You know what I mean? And not just that goes for sports, work, anything.
Yeah.
Once you get into somebody's head and you invest and you got real estate in there, you got it.
Absolutely. I want to share this story with you. I had an offensive lineman that played with me in El Camino. They went off to a D1 school and did very well, made all honors. I believe he played in the NFL. So one day I came up to him, and I'm not going to say his name, and I said, whatever, I'm going to make up the name. Hey, Mike, how you doing, man? Hey, blah, blah. Hey, man, you did great in college, man. Did you go to the NFL? Yeah, I played for a little bit. I said to him, hey, how do you think I would have done in Division I football? First thing he said to me, oh, Roland, you were small. I said, yeah, but I would be going against you again, right? He goes, yeah. Well, what's going to change? I'm going to whoop your ass. I mean, these guys.
And what did he say?
Well, he figured it out because for 20, 30 years, a lot of these people that I played against, like especially offensive linemen, for whatever reason, they would always say to me that I couldn't possibly not play the next level. But what are you saying that within a year you're going to block me when you weren't even like in my league? Keep in mind, I'm going to get better too,
Right.
and I'm going to get bigger. So that's just something that kind of like, it always bothered me over the years. For example, think of basketball. There's always exceptions. You got Spud Webb.
Yeah.
You have Buzzer. Why couldn't there be one in the NFL? Look at Dick Botticandi. I know that was a little before my time, but he was a tiny middle linebacker. Yeah. But anyways, there's always freaks, and I was definitely a freak, I believe. But.
Yeah, and I think maybe same level of play 10 years later might have worked in your favor, right? Because you have better coaching, better system, more awareness, not everything was based on hype, because the game did change over, from the 80s into the 90s and now. I mean, these guys are freakish athletes, but they're not always the biggest, so you definitely see, like some of the quarterbacks, they're, some of them are 5'9", but they got hands like this and they got the speed, right? So the game has definitely changed, but it's just timing, right?
Yeah, that's very true.
So let's wrap up, college football, right? So did you ever get any other mentions from El Camino? Throughout the years, like you said, you've always kept in touch with them. Do they do like,
yeah, they did.
old man awards, where it's like they recognize groups from.
You had to go there, didn't you?
I did. I gotta go there.
I forgot about that one. Yeah, actually, it was a couple months ago. They had the all-decade team.
Okay.
Of the 80s. So I'm thinking I'm going to make the Hall of Fame for all the decades, right? So I'm thinking.
Well, you only played in the 80s. You can only.
Right. Well, no.
You played in the 90s. Never mind.
No, I played in the 80s.
Oh, that's right.
I played in 82, 83.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I just heard recently, they're going to have the Hall of Fame for all the decades. Well, obviously, I'm not going to make that one. So I'm thinking the 80s, it's going to be too easy. I mean, who's in my league? Who's going to match my stats? And I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but to this day, I'm still an icon. I'm a legend in that position. I didn't even make the team, and I went to the ceremony. I just could not believe it. And I seen some of the old coaches from the old days. I seen my defensive coordinator. He's losing his mind. He didn't even remember me. But I tell you what made me feel really, really good. I didn't make the all-decade team, but we had an after party, and our head coach Jack Riley. You probably heard of him. He's I believe he's in the Hall of Fame, offensive coordinator for the NFL for like 18 years. He was under Coryell. Anyways, he's the one that I believe created West Coast offense. So anyways, so we were like in a little meeting, and all the coaches were there, and Jack Riley, out of nowhere, said to the other coaches, "How in the hell did Sarria not make the team?" And that just made that.
Right there, that was the cosign right there. That was like, all right, that's the recognition I needed. The coach sees it, I'm good. Because we all know a plaque is a plaque. I mean, it is community college football. You know what I mean? But it's still the recognition for the work and everything. But if the coach recognized it, it's like, all right, that's the validation right there.
Especially from Jack Riley. I mean, you're talking about a guy that...
Yeah, NFL, like you said, the accolades in the NFL, he was Hall of Fame, offensive coordinator, season. That's cool. Yeah,
that was it. That was the end of my football career. And after that,
Yeah, let's get into that. So, football's done. College is done. Walk us through, walk us through the history of, let's say 20... because obviously you went 18, 19. So let's walk us through from 19 to about 23, right? What was life like? Just when you go to work? Because obviously school was done. So what did you do with yourself to live and like?
Yeah. Well, after football season was over with, through the 1980s, I drifted. Job after job. I had no education, so the only kind of jobs I was able to get was. Kind of like warehouse jobs, working in the market. And then in 1986, I worked for US Air up to 1990. And then in '94 that we're going to talk about in our next segment, when my whole life changed and another chapter came.
You see, that's why I was leading into. You don't. I'm the enemy. You don't have to.
Fair enough.
You want to take a quick break?
Yeah, let's take a break and let's get into that for a second.
Yeah. I think